It's cold outside, people. Right now, as I sit here on Thursday recording this episode, it is 10 degrees outside. It was -2 degrees yesterday morning. And I'm recording from home this morning, which is good because, frankly, as cold as it is, I would not be recording an episode this week from my car, which is how I normally record. But I'm home this morning, got a few hours off of work. The kids are at school. Karen's at work. So I'm taking advantage to record an episode in the warmth of my home rather than the ice cold freezer box that would be my car. But we had in the United States yesterday a little something they call the polar vortex. And according to the National Weather Service, the polar vortex is a large area of low pressure and cold air surrounding both of the Earth's poles. It always exists near the poles. It's always there. 24/7, 365, it's always there. It weakens in the summer and it strengthens in the winter. And the term vortex refers to the counterclockwise flow of air that helps keep the colder air near the poles. But many times during winter, in the northern hemisphere, the polar vortex it expands and it sends cold air southward with the jet stream. And that's what we were experiencing yesterday all across the United States, mostly in the Midwest. And basically, it got dangerously cold yesterday, so cold that 8 people actually died. And that's not something, obviously, that's not something to take lightly. Now, we got, like I said, down to -2 yesterday morning, but the lowest recorded temperature yesterday came out of Park Rapids, Minnesota, and it got down to -48 degrees. Can you imagine that? -48 degrees. There's a part of me that feels like, look, once you get below zero, it doesn't really matter. But I'm talking, that's like when you're looking at -2, -10, but -48 degrees, that's freaking cold. And so that's what, if you're in one of these areas of the United States and you're listening to this, you understand what I'm talking about. And you're probably like, well, I'm glad that you were able to be home the morning that you're recording this, because I would not blame you at all for not wanting to record an episode out of your car when it's this cold. And so, yeah, that's what's going on Thursday, January the 31st, 2019. Let's start the show. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Stephen or Else podcast, the most important podcast in all of human history. I'm your host, Stephen, and this week we're talking about Black Hammer from Jeff Lemire, Volume 1, Secret Origins. I loved this book. I'm just going to say that right out here in the front, in the beginning of the episode, before we get to the section in which I review this book. I freaking loved it. Now, as you know, I'm typically not going to talk about a book on the show that I didn't like. I'm not going to spend an episode telling you how much a book sucked. And so if I read a book during the week that I didn't like, I'm going to put it down and pick something else up and read that instead. Now, I do have episodes scheduled out there rolling through March into the beginning of April, which has already somewhat changed based on something I picked up from Comixology Unlimited a couple of days ago. But if I have a certain book scheduled, and like I said, if I read it and I don't like it, I'm probably not going to talk about it. So I posted the schedule out there on Patreon, and anybody can see it. I made it available to everybody. So if you're looking at the schedule and I have an episode that comes out and it's a different book that's on the schedule, then there's a good chance that the book that was on the schedule I just didn't like. Or I'm just pushing it back because I found something I wanted to read that I found more exciting. See, that's the thing with me. There's a few things that you know about me if you listen to this podcast regularly. One, I often forget what I'm going to say and stall and use the word a lot. My brain doesn't quite work as fast as my mouth. And so I often also use phrases the wrong way. I can hear the phrase in my head and I say it. When I say it, it comes out wrong. And I don't even notice it. A matter of fact, when I was listening back to episode 23 just the other day, and I was talking about Alpha Flight, and I was talking about the different levels in Department H. There was Alpha Flight, Beta Flight, and Gamma Flight. I explained what Gamma Flight was, and then I explained what Beta Flight was, but I referred to Beta Flight through the rest of that conversation as Gamma Flight, and I didn't even notice. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff that you can always get from me. The other thing you can also get from me is I change my mind a lot. I like to plan. I have a bit of OCD, but I also have a bit of ADD. And so I like to plan. I like to have structure, and I like to know these are the books I'm going to read for the next 3 months. And these are the episodes based on those books that I'm going to do. And so I spend 10 or 20 minutes. I put a calendar app on my phone, and I schedule out everything, and I look back at it, and I look at my schedule, and I feel really good about myself because it's structured. I know that the third Monday in February, I'm going to be talking about a certain book, and that makes me feel good. And I have the books ready. I know that as soon as I finish reading one book, I can read the next one and start taking notes and all that good stuff. Even though I don't really take notes. I take them in my head as I'm reading, and then I forget everything I'm thinking about. Mainly because I don't have a way to take notes while I'm reading a book. I have a little writing journal pocketbook in my back pocket that I use. Well, it's supposed to be used whenever I have an idea for a book, or I will often write stories in that I will later type into my computer. Recently, with my writer's block that I've been experiencing, I've used that book more for grocery lists than anything else. And so here's something else that you get from me, just weird tangents. And now I can't remember what I was talking about. Oh, so I like knowing when I'm going to read books and when I'm going to talk about them. However, at the same time, after I've done all that, after I've created the schedule, and in this case, I created this schedule through February. March was easy because March is Superman month. We'll talk about that in a minute. I scheduled these out. I had the schedule ready, and I actually created it like 3 weeks ago. And I'm looking at the schedule, and I'm feeling really good about myself. It's like, you're a planner, man. You're a scheduler. You're ready to go. You're serious. This is serious business here, man. Look what kind of work you're putting into this podcast. You're not messing around, friend. Maybe, I thought to myself, maybe you should publish the schedule out on Patreon. So, but make it available for everybody. And then I start fighting with myself in my head. Well, but what if I put the schedule out and people see books on there that they don't really care about, and so they just stop listening to the show because they know that in February I'm going to talk about a book they don't care about. And then the other side of my mind says, well, yeah, but the reverse is also true. What if they look and they see a bunch of books that they're excited to hear you talk about, and they start telling all their friends? But then the largest voice jumped in on top of that and said, dude, don't publish the schedule, because the minute you put it out there for everybody to see, you're going to find another book that you are excited about reading, and you're going to want to change the schedule. That voice won out for a couple of weeks. Well, after 2 weeks went by, and I have been sticking to the schedule, I decided to go ahead and publish it. So I did that a couple of days ago. And literally 10 minutes later, I'm perusing Comixology Unlimited, and I see that they have the new Teen Titans Judas Contract trade. I've never read any Teen Titans. And I know that this book is written by Marv Wolfman, and the art is George Perez. This is, of course, the team that brought you Crisis on Infinite Earths, which I did enjoy. So here's a book that I'm probably going to like. I've never read any Teen Titans, and here's my chance to try. So I'm going to jump in on probably what is the biggest known Titans story. And so I start reading. I read the first issue in the trade, and now I'm excited about it. And I think, well, I want to start talking about this. Maybe I should boot out one of the books that I'm going to talk about in February and put this in its place. Literally 10 minutes after I put that schedule out. So if you've looked at the schedule, I don't know. I may stick to it. I may not. I think I'm going to stick to it, frankly. Because while I have been enjoying reading this Teen Titans book, I think I'm going to stick with my schedule because it's out there. So that means that even though I've been talking about this new Teen Titans book on Twitter and now here on the podcast, you may not hear me actually talk about the book itself until April. So sorry about all that. Sorry. But that's the kind of podcaster you get in me. Someone who needs structure, someone who needs to plan, someone who wants meticulous show notes, a schedule, and needs to know what he's going to do each week. And yet I'm also someone who's going to throw that all out the window without a second thought, just on a whim. That's the kind of podcaster you get from this guy here. And you also get me stumbling over words and forgetting people's names, because I put all that stuff in my notes, but I don't always remember to look at my notes when I'm talking about books. So a reminder, since we're talking about schedule, March is Superman month. If you're new to the podcast, what does that mean? That means that I learned a few weeks ago that Hoopla, which is an app that ties to a library account, if your library uses Hoopla and you have a library card, you should get this app. You're not only going to be able to get comic books on this app, you can get audiobooks and ebooks as well. But I found out that all 4 trades that are part of the Death and Return of Superman storyline are all available on Hoopla. And with my account, and this varies based on your library, but with my account, I can only check out 4 things a month through my Hoopla app. All right, so 4 trades, 4 things I can check out. Let's make a whole month out of that. I haven't read this story in a while. Let's just make a month out of it and invite everybody to participate. So the first episode in March, which is Monday, March the 4th, I'm going to be talking about the Death of Superman trade. And like I said, you can get that through the Hoopla app if you have a library card and your library participates. It is also available through Comixology Unlimited and Kindle Unlimited if you have either of those services. But the other 3 trades do not appear to be available unless you purchase them. So here's the way it's going to work. If you want to participate, you have until the Wednesday before the Monday I put the episode out to send me your thoughts. And there's a couple of ways you can do that. You can just put it all down in an email. You can record up to a 5-minute audio clip, send that to me by email, which is stevenorelse@gmail.com. But we also now have a new subreddit out there on Reddit, and that's going to be reddit.com/r/StephenOrElse. And there is a thread in there for the Superman month in March. And so you can put your thoughts in there as well. And speaking of Reddit, I announced it last week. We actually have 3 subscribers out there on the Reddit apart from me. And you know what? I actually have some listeners' feedback through the Reddit. So let's talk about that. So out there on the Reddit, when I put a new episode up, which is just, this only started with last episode 23. I put an episode up, then I'm going to start a thread out there in the Reddit, the subreddit, that will be the talkback thread. So you listen to the episode, you want to talk about it, you have questions, you have comments, you go right to the talkback thread and you put your thoughts in. And I like Reddit because you also can do it from your phone. There's a nice Reddit app. I use it all the time. Basically, what I'm saying is I want y'all to come to Reddit and join in on the conversation. So I have listeners' feedback from Miss Katonic posted over on the episode 23 talkback thread. And in the episode, of course, I talked about Punisher season 2. And Ms. Katonic says, I'm behind on my Netflix watching. I haven't watched Daredevil season 3 or Punisher season 2. I will, just not sure when. The Burn Alpha Flight are some of my favorite 80s comics, as well as his X-Men stuff. His Superman and Fantastic Four stuff didn't move me. All right, so the first thing I have to say about that, Ms. Katonic, is that you need to watch Daredevil season 3 and Punisher season 2. I know you said you're gonna, but get on it. Get on it, because it's some good stuff. That's some great TV right there. I know that Daredevil has officially been canceled, and I'm worried that now that Punisher season 2 is up, that it's going to be canceled, and hopefully they will move that stuff somewhere else. The rumor is that they're going to move them to the new Disney streaming service, but I read something else that there's a clause that says they can't do anything with it for a year to 2 years to 5 years or something. I don't know. I do have a couple of the Byrne X-Men trades through Comixology that I'm going to read. I have the Dark Phoenix Saga and Days of Future Past. So you can look forward to me talking about those at some point. And I know you said the Superman and Fantastic Four stuff didn't move you. Byrne's Superman is my Superman. That's what I grew up on. I grew up reading. That was, other than the Super Friends. So, I mean, really my first exposure to Superman was the Super Friends. But Superman in the comics, the first stories I read, the first Superman comic I read was his Man of Steel #1. So John Byrne's reboot of Superman, that is my Superman. But hey, that's just me, man. That's just me. All right. So, come to Reddit, participate, be part of the conversation. You'll be, I'll read some of the stuff out here on the show like I did with Ms. Katonic there. So, what else do you want me to say about that? Reddit, subreddit, link will be in the show notes. Okay, let's move on with the show already. Black Hammer Volume 1 Secret Origins. This collects issues 1 through 6 of the series. It was written by Jeff Lemire, Dean Ormston on art, and the great Dave Stewart on colors. Let me read you from the blurb, and then we'll talk about the book itself. Okay, so the blurb, the official description says, once they were heroes, now banished from existence by a multiversal crisis, the old champions of Spiral City lead simple lives in a timeless farming town. But as they attempt to free themselves from this strange purgatory, a mysterious stranger works to bring them back into action for one last adventure. All right, so I should say that this is the first time reading that blurb. I went into this trade knowing nothing about it other than a lot of people were saying a lot of good things about this book. And frankly, this last sentence here, about the mysterious stranger working to bring them back into action for one last adventure. I don't recall seeing that at all in this trade. But we'll get into that. There is something that happens, but we'll kind of get into that. Okay, so what we have here is we have 6 heroes from as they said, Spiral City, who are now living in this farm town. They all live together, with the exception of one of them, on this farm. And let me go through the characters. We have Abraham Slam, Barbalian, Golden Gale, Randall Weird, Talkie Walkie, and Madam Dragonfly. So all of them are in this small town, and you get you learn right away that they're trapped here. And what this series does really well throughout these first 6 books is each one of the issues, starting with issue 2, the first issue is kind of a setup. It's kind of it's the hook. The first issue is the hook. They give you Jeff Lemire and Dean Ormstrom gives you just enough to hook you. They don't give you much. All you know is that these 6 weird people, some of them, like Randall Weird, Barbalian, and Talkie Walkie, look like they might be heroes. Barbalian is an alien. Randall Weird is dressed in a weird red spacesuit all the time. And Talkie Walkie is a robot. Abe, Gale, they look like normal folk. And Madam Dragonfly, obviously there's something weird going on with her. But in this first issue, you're just slightly introduced to these characters, slightly introduced to this situation. You just know that here are 6 people that are in a place that they probably shouldn't be, with the exception of Abe. He seems to really like being where they're at, and that they are stuck there. But you don't know why. So then as they get into the, so like issue 2 through 6, each one is basically an origin of 4 of the 6 heroes. And they do a really good job of giving you these origins while still interweaving the actual story. So here, we'll just go through the characters and what we know about them at this point, and then how they tie into the story as it is. So the very first origin that we get is Golden Gale. Her name, she's Gail Gibbons. And she may be the oldest of all these heroes. I don't know. They don't really go into it. But we know that in the quote unquote golden age, she was 9 years old. And the golden age, it looks like we're talking like the 20s, right? 20s or 30s maybe. And she's a little girl. She goes into a movie theater because the dude at the ticket booth, who you can't see, very shadowy, basically tells her to go into this. It's a very quick, simple origin. And what you learn really quick through all these as we get to the origins is that each one of these characters are what's the word I'm looking for? They're an allegory for an established, well-known superhero, mostly from the DC universe. Some are very, they're not even hiding the fact that that's who this is in essence supposed to be. Golden Gale is one of them because she's a 9-year-old girl. She goes into movie theater. The movie theater is empty, but there's an old man up on the stage, and he's a wizard. And he tells her, "My name is Zaphram." And she says, "Zaphram." A lightning bolt hits her, and she turns into a superhero version of herself. So ultimately, this is Captain America and the wizard Shazam. However, it's more than just this is the female version, because really the female version of Captain Marvel would be Mary Marvel. But so when she says the wizard's name, Zaphram, a lightning bolt hits her. She turns into a superhero. But when it happens, she doesn't change into an adult like Billy Batson did with Captain Marvel. She stays as 9-year-old Gale. She can fly, and she's super strong, and she's got a costume on, a gold and white costume that is kind of reminiscent of the Captain Marvel costume. And she goes by the name of Golden Gale. Well, as you progress in the story, you find out that as she gets older, as Gale herself ages, because they show her at one point, she's like at college, and when she transforms into Golden Gale is still the 9-year-old girl. So as they progress, she's in her 50s, And I think at one point in the story, she talks about how, as she aged, she hated, when she was a teenager, when she was in college, she grew to hate becoming Golden Gale, because then she was in essence becoming a child again. But then yet the older she got, so as she was getting into her 40s and 50s, she loved becoming Golden Gale, because then she got to be a little girl again, right? You don't want to be a little kid when you're in your 20s, but you would love to be a little kid again when you're in your 40s and 50s. But the thing is we know at this point that they're trapped in this town, and she got trapped as Golden Gale. So she is now stuck in the body of this 9-year-old girl. And she has to pose as the granddaughter of Abraham Slam. We'll get into him in a minute. So she has to go to school. She has to go to grade school. But she's a 50-year-old woman in a 9-year-old girl's body. And so there are moments where one of the teachers catches her in the girl's bathroom, sitting on a toilet stall, smoking a cigarette. She cusses. The first day of school for that year that this, because they've been in the town for a while, but whatever the first day of school is this year, now let me explain. This did not make a lot of sense to me in this instance, because they have been in this town for 10 years, but she's been 9 the whole time. And they have a part of the story where she is getting onto the bus for her first day of school. Now, there is a mystic character, Madame Dragonfly. So maybe she messes with the town. So I don't know. I don't know how that works. They didn't really explain that. So that's a question that needs to be answered. Why she seems to have multiple first days of school. Why nobody notices after 10 years that this girl is still 9. I don't know. They haven't explained that yet. But she's a very fun and yet a very sad character. It's fun that she's drinking and she's smoking and she's cussing, but she doesn't want to be, she's stuck in this 9-year-old girl's body, and she doesn't want to be there anymore. And she wants to get out of this town. She wants to find a way out so she can go back to her regular life. The next origin they do is Barbalian. Now, this is basically Martian Manhunter, except for he's red. So in the origin story, a NASA spacecraft lands on Mars. There are there were astronauts in the crash. They are dead. We don't know if the Martians killed them or if the crash killed them. But there's 3 Martians standing around, and they're trying to decide what to do, because now the humans can come to Mars. And so the Barbalian character, whose name is Markz, M-A-R-K-Z, all of the Martians the 3 that we have met so far, Markz, Locks, and Jans. They all have that John Jones type of name, like Martian Manhunter. So Markz, he suggests that one of them goes to Earth, disguises himself as a human, because they can change their shape. They are shapeshifters, just like Martian Manhunter, and find out what's going on and what they're all about. And the Locks, who is the leader, he says, okay, well, you're going. So he goes down to Earth. The first thing he encounters is in Spiral City, where a cop is trying to arrest a couple of criminals who shoot him dead. Markz then throws the cop's body into the river, takes the guy's place. And so he's stuck there with the rest of them. He poses as Gale's uncle, great uncle, because I believe he poses as Gale's uncle, I believe. Anyway, the next then origin is Abraham Slam. So in the town where they're trapped, he's an older dude. He looks like he might be in his 60s. And he poses as Gale's grandfather, Abe. But his origin is very Captain America-like. It's World War II. He's skinny. He's frail. He has asthma or something, and he's trying to join the army so he can go fight the Nazis. And they disqualify him, and he's really upset. But he doesn't go through, he doesn't have any superpowers. He doesn't go through any super soldier type program. But as he's out there on the, outside this, the enrollment office, being sad and depressed, a dude comes up to him and says, you know what? I'll tell you what, I own a gym. My name is Punch Slockingham, which is a weird name. Socklingham, Punch Socklingham. And he said, I'll train you. I'll put some muscles on you, and I'll teach you how to fight. And that's what he does. And so Abe gets, muscled up and he learns how to box. And the plan is to have him become a boxer, because the name Abraham Slam would be a perfect name for a boxer. But in the meantime, these mobsters come in and they murder Punch in front of Abe. And Abe, fights him off, and he vows to fight crime from that point forward. And he becomes Abraham Slam, a costume vigilante. And so in this town where they're trapped, he is poses as Gale's grandfather. Barbalian poses as his, I think he is supposed to be Abe's brother. So that would be Gale's great uncle. Abe is trying to start a relationship with a waitress at the diner who is the ex-wife of the chief of police, who of course is not really happy about his wife seeing someone else. So there's some tension there. And we know by the end of the series that this dude is going to do something. He's going to try something. And there's a whole storyline. She wants to meet his family. She wants to come out and have dinner with him and meet his family. And he's like, no, it's complicated. You can't meet my family. And so there's that whole tension going on, along with the chief of police. Then you have Randall Weird. He is basically your Adam Strange, and he ventures a lot into what's called the Parazone, or the Negative Zone in Marvel, or the Phantom Zone in DC. I believe it seems more like the Phantom Zone. But going in and out, it basically allows him to travel through time and space, and he sees stuff in the past and the future while he's in there, and it's really messed with his mind. So he looks like an old guy. His hair is white. He's got a long beard. He's got a long mustache, but he's in this red costume with this glass dome over his head. And he actually is posing as Abe's son. So I think he's not as old as he looks. I think his hair has just gone white. But he's a little out of his mind. And with him on his adventures into the Parazone and out in space, he has a companion, which is a robot named Talkie-Walkie, a female, because he refers to her as she a lot. And so, of course, Talkie-Walkie is with them in this town, and she just has to kind of stay out of the way. But she does all the cooking and cleaning, and she's not really all that happy about it. And then to round out the cast, we have Madame Dragonfly. She is a mystic, witch type person who is linked to a cabin. Her origin is that she comes to this cabin with her dead baby, because the town folks said that the witch that lives there can do anything. And the witch says, yes, I can give you a child again, but there's a price to pay. She goes, my life would have to be the price, which means that you would have to take over for me and be linked to this cabin forever or until you die. And she says, yes. And so when they end up being trapped in this small town, the cabin comes with her. So she's forever linked to this cabin, which has multiple doors, which go to different places. And she does magic, but she also poses as Abe's daughter and Gale's mom. And that will come into play when we get into the story at hand. So really what we're talking about at this point is just all their origins and how they're very similar to these DC characters. And the only other thing we really learned in this book is that there was another superhero character in Spiral City called the Black Hammer. And at one point, they all go up against their Thanos Darkseid type character called Anti-God. And we don't know exactly how they defeat him, but we do know that it involved the Black Hammer sacrificing his life, and through that causes them to be trapped in this small town. Everybody who lives in a small town can come and go as they please. They can leave the town. They can go to other cities. They can go to other states. They can go to other countries. But none of our six can do that. Randall Weird can go into the Parazone, but he still seems to be somewhat trapped there.
Up, up, down, down, left, right, BA select start. I'm trying to unlock your heart from years of walls. And when Hyrule falls, I'm hoping that the things I do are working to connect with you. I see that you're free, quit my shop. I'd like for you to know my name. They call me Box 138. I think we are due for a walk. Cause like me, you pull from the middle, skip the books up on the top. So up, up, down, down, left, right, BA select start. I'm trying to unlock your heart from years of walls. And when Hyrule falls, I'm hoping that the things I do are working to connect with you. I wish I could know.
Okay, so you have these 6 quote-unquote superheroes from Spiral City who are now trapped in this small town. I don't remember that. I don't recall if they say the name of the town in these 6 issues. I saw it online on Wikipedia, but I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But so you've got Abe and his family, which would consist of Madame Dragonfly as his daughter, Gale, his granddaughter, Randall Weird, his son, and Mark, his brother. And then nobody knows about Talkie Walkie. Talkie Walkie stays hidden. Abe likes it there. He is resigned to the fact that this is where they're going to be. So he's really embraced the role of the farmer. He does the chores. He goes out and tends the fields. Gale is trying to she just does not like it there at all. She is trapped in this girl's body. She has to go to school. She has to try to follow rules. Abe is always, getting on to her so the scene when she's about to get on the bus for the first day of school, he says, "You smell like gin. It's 8:00 in the morning and you're already drinking." And, Mark is, you find out that, he's an alien. Mark is also gay. And there is a moment earlier back in Spiral City where he tries to come out to his partner, and his partner just freaks out, kicks him out of the car, and leaves him there. So now he's been denying this about himself for a long time, and there is a new preacher in town. And Mark almost feels like he's getting signals from this preacher. He starts going to church for the first time. And at one point, he and Gale have grown really close because the two of them seem to be the biggest outcasts. They're the ones that don't want to be there the most. Gale really doesn't want to be there. And so at one point, they're sitting up on top of the barn because Mark can fly as well. Barbalian. I love that name. Barbarian, alien, Barbalian. Love it. They're sitting up on top of the barn, and I don't think he has told anybody else that he's gay. And he's about to come out to her, and he's telling her that he has started having feelings for someone, and she's really excited. Turns out that she has feelings for him. And he's like, whoa, hold on now. I'm sorry, it's not you. You've got to understand, He doesn't just tell her, here's the thing, I'm gay. No, he tells her instead, you're a little girl. And she says, I'm not a little girl. I'm in my 50s. And says, yeah, but you're a little girl. It's weird. And she doesn't handle that well. Abe's new girl talks him into letting her come over for dinner. So he's got to try to plan this dinner with all his weird, quote unquote, family members acting normal. Gale comes down to dinner dressed as a goth and cussing. And it all seems to be just spiraling out of control. But then Randall shows up, and he's a colonel. He's in his military outfit. His hair is clean and cut. His face is cleanly shaven. He's acting completely normal, and everybody's freaking out internally about it. But then later in the book, after the dinner, when Abe runs into Randall again, he's back in his spacesuit. His hair is long. His mustache is long. And he doesn't quite remember dinner the day before. And you get the feeling during his issue that, because he pops up every now and again. There's like at one point, Gail is in her bedroom and he just like pops into her bedroom and she's yelling at him, I could have been naked. And he goes, well, I knew you weren't naked though. And she goes, but I could have been. And he goes, yeah, but you weren't. And I knew that you weren't. And you kind of learn that in the Parazone, he can see into through all these doors. And so the question is the Randall that was at the dinner, is that him from a different time? It just, his part is going to be really confusing trying to tie together. And I know that Jeff Lemire will, because he's a pretty awesome writer. There's a scene where the teacher catches Gail smoking in the girls' restroom. So Abe has to come to the school, and there's a big scene there because she says this isn't the first time something like this has happened. And we think that as her grandfather, you're not up to the task of raising her, and that we need to get social services involved. But then Madame Dragonfly shows up as the mother, and she puts a spell on the teacher, and everything is okay. Anyway, this was a really good book. This was really, really good. And I have been reading all over the internet, mostly on Twitter, about how great this book was. And I'm glad I listened, because this is a great book. Now, here's the thing with this book, just looking at stuff on Wikipedia and whatnot, this book has spawned a lot of side projects, a lot of other books, a lot of spin-offs. So if I want to continue reading, I'm going to continue reading with the main Black Hammer series. I think Hoopla has at least 2 other trades out there. And then maybe at that point, if I want to try some of these other series, I will, and then I'll come back and talk about them. But Black Hammer is a must read. It's a great book. You're barely touching just in these 6 issues. It was a really good 6 issues, but you're barely touching the story. We don't really know at this point who Black Hammer is, other than that he was a superhero, and he might be their Superman, because there is at one point during Abraham Slam's origin where he is fighting Cthulhu. Which is an awesome name. Here's one of the things I really enjoyed about this series. It took itself very seriously and yet didn't at the exact same time. This is a very dramatic book. There are some very dramatic, serious things happening. But at the same time, you've got characters like Talkie-Walkie, Barbalian, Cthulhu. Cthulhu is a scientist named Lou who... Abe claims during their fight that he mixed his DNA. He had the DNA of an octopus, injected into him, and so now he's like half man, half octopus. He calls himself Cthulhu, whereas Cthulhu claims that he's actually been taken over. He's actually this interdimensional monster that is using his body as a host. Anyway, during that fight, the Black Hammer shows up and helps Abe and basically dresses Abe down. He's like, look, I understand that you've been doing this for a long time, but guys like Cthulhu are way out of your league. You need to start worrying about stuff that you can handle and leave the big boys to us. And he's in shadow mostly the whole time. All you know about Black Hammer is apparently he's powerful and that he flies. That's it. So we're going to learn more about Black Hammer, I'm assuming, as the series goes. We're going to learn exactly what the sacrifice was that trapped them in this town. We get kind of a clue that maybe this town is not in the same universe as Spiral City, because Talkie-Walkie the whole time, he's created a probe to send out beyond the town to tell people that they're there so they can be rescued. This is the 6th one he's created, because everyone he's created before hasn't made it. It's, been destroyed when it gets to the barrier. This one makes it through. It seems as if it goes through the barrier, they lose its signal, and Talkie-Walkie is, okay, well, it's another failure. But it actually goes through a doorway. It comes to Spiral City, where one of the heroes, who apparently wasn't involved in this battle with Anti-God, he seems to have been retired. He is approached by the daughter of Black Hammer to find out about this probe. She's able to go through the doorway, and she may be this mysterious stranger that the blurb was talking about. She actually comes through the doorway to the farm, but Madame Dragonfly, before anybody can really come up and talk to her, uses a spell to erase her memory of why she is there. So what's going on with that? This could be a chance for them to escape. Madame Dragonfly erases her memory. Why does she want to remain there? Abe wants to remain there, or Abe likes it there. Everybody else wants to leave except for maybe Madame Dragonfly. There's something in her past that involves a child that we know that, before she became Madame Dragonfly, her child had died. She, at one point, a couple of townsfolk come to the house because there's a child missing, and one of them dies because he goes into the house and creatures come out of the doors and kill him. The other one, she fires some kind of mystic bolt into, and he falls into the lake. But then he comes back out as some kind of weird swamp tree creature. They fall in love. But when she then is taken to this town, even though the cabin came with her, this weird swamp tree creature does not. But yet she might be pregnant. So what's going on with that? There's just a lot going on in this book, and it doesn't throw it at you all at once. It's not. Sometimes books like this can run the risk of being very highbrow. And you know what? I don't consider myself an idiot. I joke all the time that I am. I'm not a stupid man, but I'm not a smart man. And so when it comes to some books that try too hard to be clever, I walk away. This one, it's just a very good, smart, intricate book with a lot going on. It doesn't dumb it down, but it's an easy read at the same time, if that makes any sense. But that's the Black Hammer. And I would love to hear what you thought about it. If you've read it, I want to hear what you think about it. So come on over to Reddit, subscribe, and let's talk about it. Or send me an email, and I'll read it out here on the show next week.
It's party time at a ladies tonight, and by party time I mean his stories from 1939. She makes jam in the AM, she makes ham in a cataract Ray-Bans. She know me ever since I used to use crayons. My mama is a baby that she made. It's party time at my ladies tonight, and by party time I mean go to bed at 8 o'clock at night. She got moves like what? She can't hear, so she always says what? When I was little, she would spank me on my butt and wash my mouth with soap. At 89, yeah, she still has it. Buy her begonias and she'll plant it. Whoa-oh, whoa-oh. Hats in the house, yeah, she can't stand it. She's like my matriarchal habit. I'm going to Grandma's house, and we're gonna have a good time with cookies in our mouth, and we're gonna play in sunshine. I'm gonna go to Grandma's house, I'm gonna go to Grandma's house, I'm gonna go to Grandma's house, I'm gonna go to Grandma's house. party time.
I want to thank everybody for listening to the Stephen Orell's podcast. We are a proud member of the Comics Podcast Network, and that's a place that you can go to find other excellent comic book podcasts. If comic book podcasts are your thing, and I'm assuming they're going to be, otherwise, why are you listening to me? And you want to know of others, then go to comicspodcasts.com. There's plenty of them there. You can email your questions and comments to stephenorelse@gmail.com. You can also leave a comment to the episode on the site. That's stephenorelse.com. Or just come on over to the Reddit at reddit.com/r/StephenOrelse and join in on the community. Just be part of the community. Be part of the fun. I'm not going to talk about support in this episode, okay? You know how to support me if you want to, all right? Patreon, spread the word. Spread the word. Tell everybody about the show. Get out there. Spread the word. Thunderbird. The Stephen Orell's podcast. We got where it's at. That's our slogan. And what does it mean? I don't know. And that's the show for you, right? What's the show? I don't know. He talks about comics and he forgets names of characters and he goes on to tangents and he says words wrong often. So, okay. So yeah, Stephen Orell's podcast. We got where it's at. The theme song for this episode is Worship by Trinity X. You can find it and more songs from the band at atomiczombierecords.bandcamp.com. The rest of the music comes from Kirby Crackle. You can find them at kirbycracklemusic.com. And of course, all those notes will be in the link. That's what I was about to say. It's here on my notes. It says, and of course, all those links will be in the show notes. But I almost read it as, and of course, all those notes will be in the show links. So yeah, go to the show links and see all the notes. Or instead, go to the show notes and click on the links. It's getting cold in the house. I actually turned the furnace off so that there wouldn't be any background furnace noise as we were talking. And so now it's getting pretty cold. So I'm ready to just wrap this sucker up, move on with my day. So until next week, I'm Stephen, and this has been my podcast. Stay warm, America, or Europe, or Russia. If you're cold, try to get warm. That's all I'm saying. Out.
Bye-bye, Daddy. Bye-bye, Daddy.
Good job.